Hey everybody, Nick here, and today we're going to do a little disassembly and maintenance on this little guy right here. This is the Kizer Barbosa Pocketknife. First off, I want to apologize for the glove. Got a little bit of eczema, and as a professional hand model, you kind of want things to look attractive. So, yeah, sorry about that. But let's go ahead and tear this little guy apart here. Looking at probably T8 there. Yeah, looks like T8 all around. So, let's pop this guy open, see what we can do for it. Oh, really? T7? Wait. I had my T10 in the wrong slot. That's why. Alright. Not off to an auspicious start, that's for sure. But that's okay. So yeah, this was indeed T8 here, and then we'll pop these other screws out. Also T8, not a hint of thread locker, which I appreciate very much. It's always a nice thing to find. There we go. And so we'll array those in the way they came off the knife, and we'll pop the pot. Well, that was pretty straightforward, right? Okay. Huh. Well, that's interesting and different. So, let's pop this guy open and see what all is going on in here. Practically speaking, it's not all that crazy, but there are a couple of... Okay, I initially had thought that this was like a separate washer inlaid into the steel there, but it's just dirty. It's just that there is a, there's an inlay and it's been worn into the steel, maybe surprisingly strongly. I don't know, but either way, let's go ahead and clean things out here. Pop out the pivot. I'm not going to go ahead and disassemble this back scale because there's really no need to. You know, you absolutely could. You could pop out these screws here as well as these screws here and then separate the G10 from that. And, you know, if you've been using this for years in humid conditions, then, yeah, that might make sense because that way you can get behind there and add in some rust protectant. The thing is, this is actually not so far away from the factory. The factory sent it to me, and I have, you know, I've carried it enough to do a review, basically, but I haven't really... you know, beaten on it or anything like that. Hasn't been to the bottom of the lake with me. That kind of thing. Not that I've been to the bottom of a lake lately. Luckily. I feel like if I go to the bottom of a lake, I've got a problem. Not that there's anything wrong with lakes, but yeah. Okay, got that cleaned out. D-shaped pivot on one side, but not the other, which is fine, I suppose. Let's see here. Clean off our pivot. Problem solved. There we go, and clean off our blade. Like I said, you've got a very strong groove worn into this little guy, which is fine, I suppose. And maybe it's milled in there, I'm not sure. But whatever it is, it's certainly in there. Pop that loose. And then we'll go ahead and clean out the bearings here. So the bearings on this guy, it looks to be using ceramic bearings, which is fine. You know, it's something I never really object to. Is it crucial? No, and frankly, at a knife at this price point, 70 bucks, that is a little bit of a surprise. But I bet Kizer's just standardized on ceramics. You know, it's, yeah, certainly can't be a bad thing. So, at least in my opinion. So there we go. I believe we've now cleaned everything off here, so let's go ahead and reassemble this knife. Very straightforward. I'm going to use a little bit of 10-weight nano oil here and pop that in there. Of course, you can always use Dewa Real Oil if you are particularly interested in something a little cheaper. One thing I'm going to, the reason I paused there for a second is that you can see that this side of the hole is entirely round. This side over here has the D shape, and indeed if we look at our pivot here, the D shape is only milled into the very top portion, which means that the untooled, un-D-shaped side needs to go, the bare side basically needs to go in the clip side, which is maybe a little bit unusual, but, you know, very often the tooled side faces the clip side, so it's a little prettier for presentation. But hey, whatever. So, okay, drop a bearing onto there, and I'm just spinning it around a little bit to make sure that I've picked up some of that oil. I really don't like gloves. And then, right here, a little bit more oil around there, and I've already coated the, what am I trying to say here, guys? Oh, the pivot there. Yeah, sorry, it's a little early, but whatever. And then I'm going to put a little bit of oil right here in the detent ball hole, and that'll oil the detent ball track right here. Oh, look, ceramic detent ball as well. Huh, nice. You know, little details, I guess, but can't argue with it. This little piece right here is actually the stop pin, and unlike on a lot of knives, this guy goes in the blade rather than in the rather than mounting into the scale. So you can see here that as the blade turns, this stop pin travels within this little gap, although it's a little weird that it's completely free, you know, that it's free flopping around in there. But hey, whatever. Probably should put some bearings in there. Just thinking aloud. Then finally, I want to make sure that my D shape here is in the proper positioning, or rotation, that is. Indeed, if I look at it here, it looks like it needs to face the very edge. So I'm just going to kind of use the handle as a little bit of a wrench to turn it to the right angle and positioning. And there we go. We'll pop back together there. We have everything in place. There are no bearings rolling around. Nice. Alrighty. So let's go ahead and put that back together. And I am actually, even though it didn't have any Loctite on it to start with, I'm going to use just a little hint of blue Loctite here. Always the blue, never the red. Just to provide a little bit more security once I've dialed the action in. Should be easily overcomable in the event that the next guy tries to disassemble this, because it's not going to be sticking around. But, you know, we'll make sure that my adjustments stick. So there's that. I'm just very, very loosely tightening that. That doesn't even make sense. I guess it kind of does. And that guy goes into here. For the meantime, because I don't want to crank everything down when everything's not fully ready to be cranked down. And one more time with feeling. I do appreciate the lack of Loctite on this. That is the Kizer used to use a pretty aggressive white thread locker, and they seem to be backing off, which is good. Okay, so right now the pivot is way too loose, and that's understandable. It's not bad at all. Action on this guy is pretty damn nice for the price. Well, a little too tight at the moment, so let's see if I can back this off a little bit without increasing blade play. No play. Centering's good. Nice. You know, can't argue. Alrighty, 7 minutes, 40 seconds. Not bad at all. There's Kizer Barbosa, disassembled, maintained, put back together, and good to go. Hope this has been interesting to you. Keep an eye out for the full review coming up here soon. Have a good one. Bye now.